How do you attract your first 1,000 subscribers without advertising, without any investment, and in such a way that most of those subscribers immediately become your clients? I'm speaking from my own experience, where I started a new account 3 times, gained my first 1,000 subscribers 3 times, and then many more thousands on my social network. I'm also drawing on the experience of more than 2,000 of my students. Today, I'll tell you about the key things you need to know to gain your first 1,000 subscribers, targeted ones, at that, who will then immediately become your clients. And I'll give you a step-by-step plan on exactly how to do this, what to do, and in what order. On one hand, your energy really does come across strongly. But how do I make everything perfect right from the start? An expert with a large audience can afford not to promote themselves for a while. But for you not to get lost in the crowd, you really do need to put in a lot of work. You might make mistakes, you might come across as awkward, funny, or even cringe-worthy. Sales won't drop off that much if this momentum stops. My name is Evgenia Bush, and for more than 6 years, I've been helping experts, entrepreneurs, bloggers, and freelancers attract clients. I make sales an easy, understandable process that they can manage without any problems, turn into a habit, and achieve stable sales. From their Instagrams, YouTubes, Telegrams, in short, from social media. If we answer the question of how to gain that very first, most difficult, incredibly tough first 1,000 followers, after which everything really does get easier, I know that this first 1,000 can be really hard to achieve. I would divide my answer into 2 parts. First, what you need to understand. And second, what you need to do. Let's start with 3 things you need to understand very clearly, integrate them into your work and your life so that this becomes your reality as quickly as possible. After that, we'll put together a step-by-step plan of exactly what to do. The first thing you need to understand in order to gain your first 1,000 followers, and then grow faster than your competitors, is that you need to run your blog as if you already have 1,000 followers. Maybe you've heard this advice before, but I want to clarify it, because you need to be very careful here. On the one hand, your energy really does come through strongly. If you're being cautious on your blog, if you think that some actions aren't okay for you yet because your audience is small, if you're holding yourself back, feeling small and unnoticed, then that's exactly how you'll stay. That's why you really need to enter the blog with confidence, making a strong entrance. Do whatever you want there, act as if you already have 1 million followers, as if you're already in demand and popular, and then your circumstances will align with that mindset. This isn't about anything mystical, it's simply about the level of energy that people pick up on, and they decide whether to follow you or not primarily based on that energy. Why do I say that you need to be very careful here? Because, on the one hand, this energy is really important, the energy of already having what you want, feeling calm and relaxed here, not limiting yourself in any way. It should be there and have its place, but there's another side to it as well. There are things that big bloggers or people with a large audience, some experts, can get away with, but those with a small audience absolutely cannot. Let me tell you about some of them. The first thing you need to understand, and where it's important not to go astray, is the idea that an expert with a large audience can afford not to promote themselves for a while, but still keep selling to their audience simply because they already have one. Their sales won't drop as much if they stop promoting, because they have a certain built-up asset, a built-up capital. Of course, it doesn't always work that way. Just because someone has 1 million followers doesn't mean all of them are active, ready to buy from them right now, and already warmed up. But overall, they definitely can, by pausing their promotion efforts, really focus, so to speak, on selling to their current audience and, in principle, make it work. I don't recommend doing this, but they can afford to do so. If you're not yet a big expert or a major blogger, you can't afford to do that. You must never, under any circumstances, not even at gunpoint, stop the process of promotion. Even though promotion itself is not the same as selling, I've talked about this many times in my previous videos, you need a full of new audience members so that you actually have someone to sell to in the end. A constant flow. It's exactly this constant flow and strong sales skills that will ultimately give you stable, regular sales. Another thing, not to feel like a big blogger if you're still small, is probably, that sense of public or social responsibility. When we imagine ourselves as a big blogger, besides the great energy and the fact that we already have assets and a large following, we can also start to feel the weight of responsibility. Meaning, if everyone knows me, if everyone is watching me, I have to justify all my actions, everything has to be perfect, I have my public persona, my public reputation. But when you're still small, it's the opposite. And as much as we'd like to say otherwise, a truly big public figure really does have to think about this all the time. When you're small, that's actually your advantage. You can, and honestly, you should, not worry about what someone might think, or who might see what, or how to make everything perfect right away. You can make mistakes, you can be awkward, silly, cringy, whatever you want. In fact, the more times you let yourself be like that, the faster you'll get to a decent result, a good look, solid visuals, good sales, and all that. So go ahead, cringe, experiment, have fun with it. So, the first of the 3 things you need to understand to gain your first 1,000 followers, to do it easily, and then keep growing smoothly, is to run your blog as if you already have a big audience. We fully covered this point. Let's move on to the second one. The second thing you need to understand on your way to that coveted number is that, honestly, right now, at the moment I'm recording this video, the number of followers you have isn't actually that important. Right now, the algorithms work in such a way, the platform works in such a way, and user patterns work in such a way that you might not have any followers at all, but you can still have reels that go viral. People might not subscribe, but they'll watch you for months, even years, buy from you, and still not be subscribed to you, and that's absolutely normal. That's why, to some extent, the race for a certain number of followers is basically becoming irrelevant now. Yeah. It's probably good to have your first 1,000 followers, at least 1,000, to have some social capital, to have people who will follow you, people you can reach out to. But making a cult out of it and thinking, I really need this 1,000 followers, and until I have them, I won't be able to sell to anyone, that's just not true at all. A huge number of examples from my students show that it's possible. Even with 100 followers, or 200, or even just 30 followers, you can sell perfectly well. You can make great sales with reels. There are plenty of cases where we just post one reel, and it immediately fills up our schedule for several months ahead. I have cases like that too. The third thing you need to understand if you want to grow right now, if you're at the stage of gaining your first 1,000 followers or just a small number of followers, is that you're starting at a time when you need to take a lot of action. Back when I started in 2021, at the beginning of the year, you could still just run your personal Instagram, and it was okay to take fewer actions. As long as they were precise, you'd really be on top of things. Everything would go great for you. Back then, you could win by being precise. Now, you still need to be precise, very much so, but you also need to do 10 times more. When I say you need to do a lot more and generally do a lot, I mean you can't afford to spend 2 weeks just picking out your Instagram profile header. I mean you can't afford to post just one reel a month or even one reel a week. The amount of content people consume is growing every day, so the amount of content being produced to meet the audience's needs is increasing, and in order not to get lost among the huge mass of other content generated and created by others, whether through optimization, delegation, or just their insane work ethic, you really do need to work a lot. Don't kid yourself into thinking you can just post one reel a week, go on stories once every 2 weeks, and expect a line of people wanting to buy from you. No, that's not going to happen. The ones who do a lot more will get the attention, and that's true at every stage. At the warming up stage, at the promotion stage, at the sales stage, during selling events, at the stage of collecting case studies and presenting those cases. You really do need to work a lot. It's 100% no longer easy money, not for a long time now. Unfortunately, I can confirm this with my own example. Even though I grow every year, in fact, I've been doing sales and promotion for 6 years now. For the past 4 years, I've been running this YouTube channel. For about the last 3.5 years, I've been focused exclusively on my own online school. That is, I don't work as a producer or take on other projects. I only teach and consult for other projects. Even though over these last 3.5, almost 4 years, my income has been constantly growing. In other words, I've never had a year where I earned more and then less, or a month where I made a lot more and then suddenly dropped off. Overall, I've always had a positive growth trend. And yet, despite all that, I realize that even just to achieve the same results as before, I now have to work much harder. I have to put out a lot more content, make it much more precise, dive much deeper into the needs of my target audience, update those needs much faster, and adapt much more quickly to new realities and trends. I know that this might scare many of you, because on the one hand, it sounds like it's not the best time to get started, so to speak. On the other hand, when I first started on Instagram, a lot of people told me, it's already too late. There were already tons of so-called experts and bloggers, and people said no one needed another one, but I'm really grateful to myself that I didn't listen to anyone and started anyway, just like when I started YouTube 4 years ago, back when hardly anyone was doing it, and I had the only channel about selling on Instagram. Starting now, I had to go through a completely different path, which I'm actually going through right now with my students, and I see how hard it can be for many of them. Of course, once they become my students, it gets a lot easier for them, but still, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And most of the videos I released on my YouTube channel, I structured them based on the principle. Step-by-step algorithms, I tried to give you an actual plan, do this, do that. But at this point, I think the question of gaining a new audience, especially your first 1,000, is mostly about what's going on in your head. That's why I devoted so much time in this video to that topic. what you need to know and understand. These are the things that will help you succeed. But I wouldn't be myself if I weren't super systematic on YouTube, on Instagram, and especially in my courses when I teach. I'm the most structured and systematic teacher. And for my students, of course, my students can confirm this. They come to me for structure, for order in their thinking, for a bird's eye view, for strategy, for strategic thinking and approach. So here, of course, I'll also give you a step-by-step plan on exactly how to get your first 1,000 subscribers, what I would recommend you do, and how I would act myself if I had this goal right now. 6 steps. Step 1. I would recommend starting by learning. I consider it a big mistake of mine that when I was starting out, I didn't study enough. I wanted to gain my own experience. I thought I was the smartest, which, of course, I wasn't. I hardly ever went to learn from others. I was very skeptical about trainings, and even about the trainings I did attend, I was skeptical. It seemed to me that they weren't telling me anything new. If I had taken the position of a student, I think I would have achieved results much faster, and now, I might have a lot more than I do. Now I study a lot, and I recommend that everyone, at the beginning of their journey, go learn from someone you trust. I'm not even necessarily saying you should come to me. You can go to any specialist who works in sales or promotion. But the only thing I would recommend is to choose someone you trust, whose approach resonates with you, and who offers some kind of systematic solutions. That is, not when you go, I don't know, to a course just about warm-ups or just about reels, but first and foremost, to a course where they'll explain how sales work and teach you, in general, to understand the whole process. And only after you've gone through that will you be able to study reels in more detail, or dive into something else. But initially, you need that helicopter view, you need to see the big picture, you need a strategy, you need to understand how the sales process works in general. The second step is to choose the target audience that suits you. Nowadays, there are tons of ways to define your target audience. Someone might tell you about some super prompt in ChatGPT, which, by the way, I don't believe in, because it doesn't define the target audience well. Someone else might suggest you do CastDev, without even considering that you don't even have your first 1,000 followers yet. It's not even clear who you're supposed to do CastDev with, who it's for, or what it will actually show us if it's just 3 people who happen to follow us by chance. But here, I'm talking specifically about consciously choosing a particular target audience. With the same product and the same skills, by choosing a different audience, you could end up going in a completely different direction. Absolutely everything, your content, promotion, and packaging, will be different depending on the audience you choose. The amount of money you make, your average check, everything will depend on who you choose as your audience. At the initial stage, you can and should choose your target audience first and foremost, rather than just define it. Choose an audience that fits you, your desires, and your core competencies. I teach how to do this in my main flagship course. The third step is basic packaging and putting together at least a simple sales funnel. Why do I say basic? Because, as I mentioned earlier, you need to take a lot of action and not spend too much time just sitting and thinking. And very often I see situations where we sit around, okay, with the profile header, we've already figured out that you shouldn't spend 2 weeks choosing it, you just need to pick something and get to work. But when it comes to packaging, funnels, and perfecting all of this, people can spend months on it, and many fall into this trap. I really don't want that to happen to you. Get your basic packaging done, and set up a basic funnel for your target audience. If you skip the first step and went straight to learning, you'll definitely get help with this and be advised to do it before you start promoting. A basic package and funnel for your target audience are still necessary. Even though user behavior patterns are changing, meaning the audience acts very differently on Instagram now and watches different content there, packaging and funnels are still, of course, important. The fourth step is to put together and present a clear product or service. A lot of people skip this step or do it at a different time, but the thing is, I'll just say it like it is, the thing is, until you have a well-defined product, until you figured it out for yourself, until you presented it in your blog. Yes, even in an empty blog where there's no one yet. You won't attract any target followers to your blog. So imagine I come across a blog, and I have no idea who this person is, what they do, I don't understand what they're going to sell, or if they're even going to sell anything at all. Why should I subscribe? Or, let's say you've chosen the strategy of first attracting people just with your personality, and only later creating some kind of product. What are the chances that out of 1,000 people you bring in, that same 1,000 will actually need the product you come up with later? But if, from the very beginning, even before you start promoting, you take this step, choose and define your product, and talk about it, even if it doesn't actually exist yet, you're just planning to make it, but you package it and talk about it, then this increases the chances that you'll attract exactly the right audience, that in the end, a much higher percentage of them will come to you. The fifth step, the second to last, is to create a lot of content that promotes you. In other words, to promote yourself a lot. Promote yourself through Reels, through YouTube Shorts, through long-form YouTube videos. Use all the resources available to you. Yes, of course, at the beginning I would recommend focusing on just one platform. Then, as a second stage or second level, you can start spreading your content from one platform, let's say, Reels, to others. You can also post the same video you made for Reels on TikTok. Upload it to YouTube Shorts as well. Yes, focusing on one platform is good, but in the end, try to make the most out of the content you create. And you need to understand that in order to gain your first audience, to get off to a strong start, to attract your first clients, to kick off this process and get the ball rolling, you need to do a lot of promotion, spend a lot of time thinking, doing, publishing, and ideally also set aside time to analyze what you've done and adjust your strategy. This way, you won't spend months doing things that don't work. There's this idea that it just doesn't work for you because you haven't posted 100,000 Reels yet. Post 100 Reels and then decide if it works for you. I don't believe in that at all. I think if you posted 15 to 20 videos and absolutely nothing is happening, you need to change your strategy. That's a sign. It's a sign that you're doing something wrong, not that you just need to keep going. Algorithms work very differently now. The final, sixth step to attract 1,000 followers or more and turn them into your clients is to talk about yourself right in the process of promotion, bring people into the context of your life, and sell to them. It's a really bad situation when you only focused on packaging, then you only focus on promotion, and then, after you've attracted some people, you come to them and say, "Hi, now I'm going to interact with you," but by then they don't even remember who you are. From the moment you attract a subscriber, you need to stay in regular contact with them through your blog, so that they understand who you are, what you do, stay with you, and don't lose context. People have a ton of subscriptions these days, and even more people don't see recommendations at all. If you don't do this, all your thousands of subscribers will just become a dead base sitting on your account, and some of them will even unsubscribe. This is exactly the kind of step-by-step algorithm you need to implement to attract subscribers who will become your clients. It works perfectly well even for your first 1,000 subscribers. And if you have an abandoned account that you need to revive, attract a targeted audience to, and turn into your professional workspace, I actually have a separate video on how to bring a dead account back to life. Check it out on my channel if you haven't seen it yet. But overall, keep in mind the 3 ideas I mentioned at the beginning of this video. Follow this algorithm, and your first thousands of subscribers, and your first clients, are definitely just around the corner. I think this video is enough for you to get a general idea of what needs to be done. As for how to do it specifically, how to avoid mistakes along the way, what to pay attention to, and what to prioritize, I cover all of that in my flagship course on the Bushman sales system. This was Evgenia Bushman-Mikhail. Before I go, I want to share that if you feel like you're taking all the right steps but still not getting anywhere, I have an intensive course that's actually called just that. I'm trying, but there are no sales. It will help you analyze your weak points, figure out exactly what you're doing wrong or not finishing, and understand what direction to move in next. You'll find the link to all my courses below this video, as well as links to my other social media. I'm on Telegram, Instagram, and of course, here on YouTube. I hope you watch me regularly. This was Evgenia Bushman-Mikhail. That's all for me for today. Bye everyone.